The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Divya, and today we have a very exciting topic for you. So what I want to invite you to do is make sure that you have your pen and paper, your notebook, or your computer, and that you're ready to take notes. And I want to thank you, each and every one of you, for those of you who have got our books, because the profits from our books are going to entrepreneurs impacted by challenges all around the world. So thank you. And the books that I'm talking about are right in the back: Expert to Influencer and The Entrepreneur's Garden. And folks who are thinking about getting our books, please do get, because the partial profits from our book are helping out. And as always, I'm going to invite you and highly encourage you to spend 1 hour of your time to give back. Just give back with no strings attached to one person, or divide your time in multiple times throughout the month. Think about it. If everyone did that, we are talking millions, billions of hours every month. So if you spend that 1 hour, go ahead and share it out with somebody else. Let the kindness roll. So let's welcome our guest, Cesar Cervantes. Welcome, Cesar.
Hello, good morning, Divya.
Good morning. So Cesar started at the age of 19. He was a stand-up comedian, an actor featured on Comedy Central and in Hollywood films. But more than a decade of laughters, after that, he realized he wanted to connect on a deeper level with his audience. And he found that nothing gave him greater joy than helping others to get to the stage of their dreams. Now he helps people land TED Talks and deliver the message on a global stage. And folks, you know that I'm all about sharing your story and sharing your voice. So we are going to learn today how to share your message on TEDx Talk. So very interesting, Cesar. We are going to travel back in time a little bit to a time when you were a child or a young boy running around making trouble, or not making trouble, sitting and reading books, if you were a recovering nerd like myself.
I was definitely making trouble.
You're definitely making trouble. That's awesome. I know it's nice to make some trouble. I made some trouble in my own time as well. So tell us if you remember any time when any moment that just stands out even today.
Can you repeat that question, Divya?
Yes. Do you have a childhood moment that stands out even today?
Oh my goodness. Well, I grew up in El Paso, Texas. I grew up on the border. My parents were Mexican immigrants, and I was first generation born in the country, and so my childhood was a lot about kind of understanding border life and where my parents came from, and where we had now arrived. And I think what stands out to me is driving on Interstate 10 and being able to see over the border, over the Rio Grande, and to see what a different life it was for people on the other side of the border. And so what stands out to me is this idea of those who have and those who have not, and the
Mm,
reasons for that. And sometimes the reasons are circumstantial, right? They're not in our power, they're not in our control. And in other ways, there are things that we can do and things that we have control over. And when you know what you have control over, and you know where your opportunities are, that's where you spend your time. And so I learned that from a really young age, and my parents instilled, both the value of education, but also the value of living your life intentionally and working for what you want, working for your dreams.
absolutely. So when you were a child, I know at the tender age of 19, you went to the comedian. Did you have any dreams of becoming a firefighter or scientist or even becoming a carpenter or doing something with your hand?
Oh, interesting. I was always a performer. I
Mhm.
was in theater from a very young age. I was in children's theater, and I also was in commercials and things like that. Just because my parents knew right away that I needed to be on stage, and so not really. I don't think I really ever desired that. My first dream, though, probably before I even knew that you could do comedy for a living, was to be a professional tennis player. I loved playing tennis, and I spent 6 hours a day on the tennis court when I was probably from starting from the age of about 11 or 12. I really started committing to it, and through my teenage years. And so that was my other dream.
And there's so many kids that it's very hard for them to follow the discipline. They're pushed by their parents. Oh, you got to play this, you got to join a sports team. And then there's somebody like you who was into it and dreamt of that. So, what did it feel like as young as you were when you were 11 and 12 that, yes, I'm all in, I'm going to go practice? What did that feel like? And how did that manifest at that time?
It felt like fun. It felt like exactly where
Mm,
I wanted to be. And it didn't feel anything more than what was supposed to be or meant to be. And nobody had to convince me to do it or to work harder. It's just I think that part of the love for sport for me, I think, is that there wasn't anything else that you were thinking about. You were in the present moment, and you were just doing. And I think this state of flow, as we call it, produces happiness, but also produces excellence. And so, yeah, as a child, I think I didn't think about it that way. I just knew I was happy, and it's what I wanted.
and that's the key. What you said was so profound. State of the flow produces excellence. And that's the thing. We have so many listeners reaching out to us and saying, my apologies, is that how do we find our passion? So that is the key, folks, that when you're doing something, it doesn't feel like a chore. It's fun. And even when you are laboring away for hours together, it lights you up. It brings joy to you. So that's, thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
When would you say was your first brush with performance on the stage?
Well, let's see. I mean, I think the stage itself came to me like in the summer when I was like maybe, oh Lord, maybe 10, around there. There was a children's theater company, and I auditioned for something, and then was in a play called Stuart Little. And I continued to do that, and somehow found my way auditioning for commercials, and did several commercials around the same age. And then when I got into high school, theater was sort of a natural thing for me to do. And what I found was that no matter what my role was, I ended up just wanting to make people laugh. And so even if I wasn't supposed to, I found a way to do that, and and got myself in trouble on more than one occasion. But I eventually learned that there was these things called open mics, and there was a comedy club in my town, and heard something on the radio, and I probably wasn't even old enough to be there, but I got on stage. I was maybe 17, 18 years old. And yeah, and looking back at it, it wasn't very good, but people enjoyed it, I think, or they pretended to. And that was enough for me to get hooked and to say, "Oh my goodness, this is the thing. This is what I want to do right now."
Oh, that's so interesting. So now you got hooked on helping people laugh, and which is awesome so many times more. Actually, there are studies that show out there that children laugh approximately or smile, whatever, wherever we want to go, the different levels of bringing that smile on your face, approximately anywhere between 350 to 400 times a day. And as adults, we go down to just 20 times.
Mm.
So, what better way than bringing joy and humor to people's lives? So, tell us about your career progression to Comedy Central and in Hollywood films.
Yes, well, when I started college, I actually got I was playing tennis, like, um, for St. Mary's University, and ended up injuring my shoulder. And so at that time, I needed to have some surgery, and there was going to be some
Mm,
recovery time. And I found that I had more time on my hands than I liked, and that I needed some more flow back into my life. And my other love was being on stage, and so I started getting up onto every open mic that I could. There was a comedy club there in San Antonio, Texas, and I maybe was doing it 6 months or so, and I started getting paid to do it. The comedy club invited me to the professional shows, and I sort of never looked back. I just kept going, and by the time I graduated college, I was touring literally the globe on USO and MWR tours for the military. And I went to Kuwait and Bahrain and Iraq, and all over. And these are places obviously I never would have gone or visited or understood what was really happening on the ground without this opportunity. And it was truly the highlight of my stand up career, because a lot of times when you're performing, it's not always that you have an audience that is super grateful that you're there. Sometimes you're performing in front of audiences that didn't even know there was going to be a comedy show. And so to perform for our military, and to be a part of that, it was huge. And so that's what led me there, and ultimately to me, wanting to pursue it full time. I moved to Los Angeles, and I started doing some independent film, and then eventually got into a couple of films that were bigger, and it was a really exciting time for me. I think I was really in love with the work and the stage. I think as things progressed, maybe 10 years or so, I just wanted more, to give more, and I felt limited by the medium of stand up comedy. And so
mm,
that's when I started thinking about public speaking, and
mhm.
that's when my shift to public speaking started happening.
Got it. So I want to go back to a couple of things that you mentioned. One was that you had surgery. So sounds like that injury and surgery put a stop to your other love of playing tennis. How did
Hmm.
you handle that?
Well, at the time, not very well.
Hmm.
I didn't really have the coping skills. I didn't know what to do. It was something that had been taken from me, and I was sure that I would never, I don't know, play the same again or be able to achieve what I wanted to achieve. And I think that luckily I just operated on instinct and said I have some time on my hands. I have another love, and so I just went with that. Um, but I didn't. It's tough for me to say. I just remember being disappointed and saddened and trying to fill that with something else, something new.
Mm, no. So, what would you tell? There's so many athletes who have such promising careers, and then something happens in terms of physical injury, and then the career is lost.
Yeah, what I would say is that, it in some ways it's like grief. And for me, I was able to come back and to play again. It certainly shortened my career, but today I still play. I'm still, it's still my hobby. It's still something that I compete in and love, and still provides me that flow. I think it's like anything else that you have to sort of reset and recalibrate, and it can be a loss, and it can be a big loss. But we're never only one thing. We're never the things that we do. We're much bigger, and there's the depth of our being cannot just be about uh, how we perform or the things that we um, partake in or give. I think you accidentally got on mute there, Divya.
You're absolutely right. We're never only one thing because it's important to accept the grief and also know that there's more to you than that, just one thing. So, as you found that shift where you wanted to connect deeply with your audience, how did TED Talk make entrance in your life?
Yeah, so I was always a TED fan, and on more than one occasion I had listened to a talk that had changed my worldview, and it did that in like 15 minutes or less. And I was just astounded that someone could do that, that you could connect with someone so quickly and compel them so effectively to change the way they see the world.
Mhm.
And I had to be a part of that. I had to understand how that was possible, because it was exactly what I was desiring, which was to connect with my audience on a deeper level, to actually have transformation. And so it became a goal of mine to do a TED talk, and I started thinking about how I would do that, and it was a long process. But what I had started at the time was teaching comedy classes, because that was also a way I found that I could connect with my audience more deeply. And what I found was that the people that were coming to learn how to do stand up comedy were coming for all sorts of reasons. It wasn't just that they, wanted to be on stage or loved stand up, which is what I thought I was going to get. It was people that had always wanted to do stand up comedy, and they just needed a little boost. They needed a little someone to teach them. But what I found was that there were folks coming to build their confidence. There were folks that were coming to conquer a fear of public speaking. There were folks coming to tell a story that they needed and wanted to tell,
Mhm.
and that really it really I don't know, it fed me in exactly the ways that I needed, but also became the idea for my first TED Talk, which was this combination of how we can use humor to also lead and grow. And so I it took me a while to sort of figure out how to get on that stage, how to apply, but I did it, and I was super proud of myself. It was super difficult, and and that's my little daughter. You could probably hear her in the background.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I had to do more. I had to keep doing it. I have 3 TED Talks now, and help people through this process because it was so fulfilling and a deep desire of mine to get to that stage, and yet it was a really long and difficult process. But when I figured it out, now there's a system to it, and I help people easily access it.
So let's say someone has a story, because I'm all about stories. And the reason I'm all about stories is that nobody has lived your life. Everybody has a unique story. And when we talk about the continuum, there is not that somebody is greater than someone, somebody is less than someone. It is just that people are at different places on that journey. And it's a continuum, it just keeps on going. So, for example, somebody may be struggling with what you have already gone through. With a transformation, you struggled, and somebody needs your story because the story can become a survival guide for somebody else.
Hmm.
Somebody has a story and they have this unique idea. Tell us, how can they go about it and get it into a TEDx talk? Because I know you shared that, how to create that message that can lend you on that stage as well as share your message with masses.
Yes. Well, I mean, story is key. It's one of the components of a TED Talk that is necessary. We need to understand your personal connection to what it is that you're trying to share. And I think you know I think though that I wanna approach your question like this. First, I think we need to start with what problem we're trying to solve. Because oftentimes we can think of a TED Talk as sort of a personal story or a motivational speech, inspirational speech, and it's not that. TED is all about a big idea that can
Mhm.
be shared and spread, and an idea that could potentially change the world. And so, first, what problem are we trying to solve to access our talk that might change the world? And once you have the thing that you want to solve, then you can say, what's the right story to illuminate how I would like to solve this problem,
Mhm.
and prove, and essentially prove that there is a better way, that there is a different world that we can create. Um, and not all stories will fit what problem you want to solve and how you want to solve it. Uh, but generally speaking, I think that we all have something that people ask us about, or when we talk about it, they lean in and they go, "Oh, what's that about?" And it can be things that we wouldn't think people want to know, and that's the interesting part, is that often when I'm working with folks, they can go first to the story or to the thing that they think people want to hear. And often that is something more common than maybe the thing that they weren't thinking about, that is more authentic or unique to their experience. So that's where I would start in story selection, Divya.
Mhm. That's powerful. So you talked about that. People think this is the story people want to hear. And a lot of times it's another story that will make an impact. So do you recommend people doing market research, reaching out to their connections? And because as I help people write their books, one of the things that we do is that it's not what you want to share. It's important to be authentic.
Hmm.
And at the same time, it's important to provide value for what your prospective listeners, your customers, your readers are seeking for. And for that, we definitely recommend a lot of market research. And in your process, what is it that you recommend?
I recommend talking to me. I think no, I mean that's true, and let me explain why. the the reason is that when we're talking about a new and big idea, or something more novel, or a story that would resonate, we're almost always talking about something that isn't um, searchable. um, the thing that's really going to resonate with folks is the thing that's not quite what they've heard before. And so it becomes difficult to sort of see what's out there. Now, I understand if you're an entrepreneur, and you have a business where you have a certain market and a certain audience, we definitely want to know what words are key, what resonates with people, but we also want to create something that allows them to see something new. So one of the ways in which we do this, in in speeches and other and public speaking world, there's something called through line, which is essentially your thesis statement. So if you think of one of the most famous TEDx talks, Brene Brown's talk on the power of vulnerability, right? Amazing talk. Her through line essentially was, we need to stop running away from vulnerability, and we need to start leaning into it. That's where the good
Mm.
stuff is, right?
Oh, yes. I mean, Brene Brown, I'm a fan of hers.
She's amazing, right? And it was exactly the right talk at the right time. Now, when we think about the problem that we want to solve and where we want to move people from and to, this isn't always something that we can figure out. It's sort of something, the work that we need to do
Hmm.
on our own and kind of dig in. But uh, yeah, I would say the keyword search is good. Understanding your audience is good. And then really working with someone who knows how to pitch, and knows really well what TED is about and what public speaking is about.
So let's say there are people who may be looking to work with someone, and then there are, of course, those solo travelers who want to do it by themselves. If you were to just kind of generalize and say, what are the key elements that need to be included in a pitch for a TEDx talk?
That's good. So the key elements that need to be there, and I've sat on mini selection committees, right, on the other end, and there's a lot of things that are very common that I've seen that won't get selected.
Mhm.
And if it's just a personal story, if it's just motivational, that's not a TED Talk. And so, what we need are the building blocks of, what problem are you solving? How are you going to solve it? And that can be done in that through line, just like Brene Brown's, right? So think about what we need to stop doing and what we need to start doing, and then you need to show us how we solve that problem. And then finally, we need to know what we're going to take away and how we're going to be able to participate in this new world, this new solution that you're offering. If those elements are in your pitch, you have a really good shot of getting selected and moving to the next round, or however that site does it, because most applicants are not putting in all of those elements, all of those
Mm.
components.
And that's where the experience comes in, where you have gone through the grind
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and know the elements. So thank you for sharing that. And you have also mentioned that the applications can be tough. So where can the TEDx applications be found?
Yes. So a number of talks are excuse me sites are selecting speakers at any given time, and there is a global map on TED.com/TEDx/events, and you can see all of those registered sites and when they have events coming up. And then what you can do is you can select and go to their website and then see if their speaker application is open. Now, there's more than 4,000 TEDx events globally every year. And so you could start by searching your area and seeing what's going on there, sign up for their newsletter, etc. But there isn't an easy way to do it. It really is one by one. So what I've done is built a massive spreadsheet that has every registered TEDx event for the year. And I'm willing to share that with with the audience and with your audience. And so if they reach out to me, I will absolutely send that to them.
Oh, that's very powerful, and thank you for that.
Sure.
Helping them cut the process. So
you bet.
And you talk about that now you've found the applications to go about it and applying it in a way that it cannot be ignored. So is it the same what you talked about the pitch, or are there any other certain nuances to it?
Is there any, can you say that again, Divya? Is there any what?
Are there any other nuances besides the structure and the format you have shared?
Oh, well, I think the novel piece of your talk is important, right? So if you were trying to do, a talk that was just like Brene Brown's, it's probably not going to get selected, right? Because everyone knows that talk. And so there is a novel element to saying, how can I have a new spin on something maybe that the most effective I have found is when we take something that we believe to be kind of common knowledge or have just accepted as, oh, this is the way the world works, or this is a problem that we all deal with that there's no solution to. And then we offer a new solution. And that really pulls people in, especially when they think that there just isn't a way around a particular problem.
Absolutely. Now, as part of TEDx applications, because they're performing on the stage, do they have to submit a video reel?
So they almost always ask for an application video where you are pitching via video. Now, in terms of a reel, not always, and it's almost never required. There are some sites now that are wanting their speakers to have their speech totally done, and they just want them to show them what the speech is, and then they'll select them on that basis. But that's pretty rare. You do not have to be a professional speaker to get selected to be on a TEDx stage at all. In some ways, sometimes selection committees can be a little weary of having professional speakers because they feel like they might just be using the stage to kind of promote as opposed to actually give something to their audience. And so, that's the other thing I would say is that always think about this in terms of how you're giving, because that will both compel the selection committee, but also will kind of alleviate your nerves too about all of this. And that's one of the more common things is people start to get a little imposter syndrome about all of this. Oh, is my message really good enough? I'm not a professional speaker. Should I still do this? And they get stuck. And when we focus on what we're giving, then we can really work through that, because then it's not about us. It's about helping people transform their lives.
Mm-hmm. Very important point that you brought up. So on one hand, we have folks who may have not spoken on stages at all, and they're scared, and that's a beautiful way of giving back. And then you brought up a really good point that there are some committees that are weary of professional speakers coming and using that platform as a promotional tool.
Yes.
So now that said, there may be a lot of professional speakers, when they hear this, how should they take it?
Well, I would just say that it doesn't. Yeah, I think if you have the skills, that will come through, right? What I would be cautious of is that, if you have a book, or if you have a coaching program, or if you have, something where your audience can access um, products that may absolutely be transformational, that you're not leading with those things, right? Because TED isn't trying to funnel people into your business. TED wants a big idea for their stage that can be shared and could potentially, transform people's lives. Now, that doesn't mean that TED isn't interested in promoting things that are successful, right? But when you're trying to get selected, and this might seem silly, but I've seen it, is that you're not telling the selection committee, hey, my book comes out the same month of your event, so it would be really great if I could get on your stage, because my book, it will help my book sales. So we, that's really what I'm trying to communicate, is that please, please, please don't make the mistake that this talk is for something other than the TED audience.
Hmm. So what's coming through, Caesar, is that it's critical that the focus has to be on giving back. The focus
Mhm.
has to be on the uniqueness of the idea. The focus has to be at a place where people look at things in a certain way. And how is it that you're looking at it? How can you bring about a change to the world and how it can be implemented?
That's right. That's exactly right. You nailed it. And if you have these elements, it's just a matter of time, really, before you get selected, and you just have to be diligent about putting in your applications, and you will be on that stage.
And there's so many times what happens is that people are scared of hearing no. And
Hmm.
because of that rejection, they don't want to apply. What would you tell people that, okay, that there is no place, that there's no guarantee they can have
Hmm.
all the elements, and yet it's possible that there may be somebody else who has such a unique idea that just grabs the attention of the committee? How to keep going?
I think that's a great question, and it's something um, that we've all experienced, right? And so the first thing I would say is that there's a there's a quote, or a saying that I've heard on a number of occasions, that I think is relevant here, which is that the only way out is through. And so the
Mhm.
only way you conquer your fear is by doing. And the only way that fear wins is by not doing, by not taking action. And will it be perfect? No, no. So that's just fear telling you a reason of why you shouldn't take action. Uh, everything great is difficult, and everything great in my life has been on the other side of something difficult. And it's completely worth it. And what I would say is that I'm on my third talk now. Every talk, I feel better about and more confident in, and I love more than the previous one, and never would have arrived there if I just didn't start. And I remember almost quitting in my first. I got selected, I got a yes, and I was so excited and elated, and I started to put my talk together, and I had 2 months to do it, which didn't feel like a lot of time. It wasn't really, when it came down to it. Um, and I wasn't happy with it, and I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna just toss this opportunity away, because it got hard and it wasn't meeting my expectation of what I thought it could be or should be. And it was completely life changing to me that I pushed through, and that I had people around me that encouraged me to push through.
And then did you end up doing that TEDx talk?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes. I got on that stage. I did it. And you know what? I look back at it and I think, wow, I was so hard on myself. I was so critical when I didn't need to be. Uh, and it's like I said, I think every talk um, after that I love a little bit more because I've grown and I know what I want to
Mhm.
give. But I never would have come to those realizations had I not done the first one. And this is I want to share this as well. When you create something, um, even if you're not totally happy with it, it's important to still put it out there, right? So not every artist that paints something is gonna it's not gonna be their favorite painting, but they still put it out there to their audience, and for their audience, for someone or for many, it will be their favorite. It will
Mhm.
be life changing, and so you can't always be thinking about how your message or your creation measures up to you because ultimately you're giving it to others.
Mhm. So tell us, you have given us a lot of wonderful nuggets. Share with us, how do you work with people to get their TEDx talk out and how can they connect with you?
Wonderful, yes. Well, uh, I have a number of ways in which I do that, but we have a really fantastic Facebook community and group where we're sharing wins and strategies all the time. And it's all about helping people get to that stage. And then when they're on that stage, delivering a fantastic talk, a fantastic message to the world and to their audience. And so, that's the first place I would say is that if you're just looking to kind of start and learn and gain community, my TEDx group is called TEDx Speakers, and when you put in Facebook groups backslash, it's just Speak TEDx, and so you can easily find us. The other thing I would say is that I really help people hone and craft the idea because the idea is paramount. And I do that for free. If you all schedule a call with me, I've got a Calendly link. And what I do is I help people hone in on their idea so that they can see the talk come to life. And when they can see the talk, I think everything else becomes more um, doable. It inspires. It allows people to take action because they can visualize what that would look like and be like on that stage. And I love doing that work. And so I will share that link. And those are essentially the two ways to connect.
That's fantastic. So thank you for offering our audience that you are open to helping them hone the idea. So, folks, sounds like the next step is going ahead and scheduling. Would you like to read out your?
Yeah. So my Calendly link, if you've used Calendly before, it's just calendly.com backslash my name, Cesar Cervantes, and then backslash TEDx exploration. But it looks like it's showing here on the screen as well, and I can post that um, wherever wherever this is going. I'm not quite sure where this is going, but I'm sure that we'll have access to it for you. And then if you join the Facebook group, you'll be able to easily message me, and I can send it to you there as well. And I'm just really excited about getting messages out into the world, big ideas out into the world. And so I would love to work with your listeners.
Absolutely. And I'm a fan of TEDx Talks myself because you listen to it for 15 minutes and get such a beautiful new perspectives on life. It helps you grow, it helps you just become a different person. And for me,
Mm,
it's about growing every single day. It's almost like peeling the layers of onion. There's so much more to you that you can realize.
indeed.
So, Caesar, are there any one quick last tip that you'd like to leave our audience with?
I would just like to say, even if it's TED is one way to sort of connect, right, and to get that message out on a global stage. And I think it's really perfect for those who who have a big idea, and who really do want to change the world. And so, if you're a speaker, if you're a coach, if you're an entrepreneur that is looking for a way to really show and highlight the way that you can help people and the work that you do, it's also enormously beneficial to you, uh, because the traffic that comes and the credibility that comes, the authority that comes with this stage is incredible. It's amazing. And if you combine, giving with your message, you really can't go wrong. In the TED stage, you can't go wrong. So I invite you in. Thank you so much, Divya.
Absolutely. And thank you, Caesar, for joining us and giving your gift of expertise to our audience generously. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, my dear audience, because without you, the show would not be possible. It is because of you, and we are here to support you. Reach out to us. You have been so generous with your time and sharing your thoughts with me, good and bad both. And I learned from your feedback. So I really appreciate that, and I love you all. So thank you. And thank you, Jason, for all the technical support. And see you next time. Take care.
Bye now.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining